everybody, to Veterans Table Talk. Do you not just love the Andrew system and that World War II era music? Love it. Thank you, Robin Tropper, for putting that together for us as our intro on our show. I'm Lou-Anne, I'm your host, and
I'm Josee.
we're here to bring you some different perspectives by empowering your voices as veterans and spouses of veterans, to be quite honest. So today is just going to be a little brief introduction of myself and Jose's life and our time in the military and what led us sort of to this collaboration of meeting of the minds, so to speak. So Josee, hi, how's your week?
Very hectic, but yeah, I'm doing good. How was your week?
Well, retirement suits me.
I know, right?
Every day is Saturday,
I agree. I kind of enjoy that now too.
right?
Yeah.
So we'll start with you. Just let I just want to let the viewers know a little bit about your upbringing. Like, where exactly did you grow up, and
Well,
give us
I'm
a
your
little bit of
typical,
background on yourself.
sure. Well, I'm your typical military brat, born and raised. My dad was also in the Canadian Armed Forces. He was a flight engineer. So my childhood was being moved a lot. Every couple of years we moved. Um, Moving also brought a lot of fun to my life because I got to meet a lot of cool people. I was very extroverted. I got to meet friends. I was very lucky to have the power of being friends with everybody. So that was very cool. And then as I got older, um, I went to school to become in hotellery. So I wanted to at first I wanted to go to hotels and judge them as 4 stars, 5 stars. So I did an actual course on that. And so I
Okay,
worked in the hotel business for a while. And then
that's
I became
actually
a
a job.
mom. Huh?
That's actually a job. That's
It
actually
is
a
a job.
job.
I know
Get
that it
out!
is a job.
I've
Pretty
never heard of
cool.
that before.
Yeah. But
Uh,
everything's a job, right? You have to go tell whether the hotel is a 4 star, 3 star, blah blah. That was my goal, but yeah. But and then after I became a single mom, I started working at a bank. So I was working at the Case Populaire, and
oh yes,
and then after when I was like 29, like 27, I kind of had the regret of why didn't I join the military when I was 20, right? Kind of had that back
yeah,
regret, and then I
yeah,
decided to join. Then I
yeah.
joined that. I was like almost 29 when I entered basic training. I had a 5-year-old daughter, and then my career started off
Okay,
there.
so yeah, so let's backtrack a little bit to your childhood. Where exactly is it that you grew up? Did you grow up in Quebec,
Grew
or
up
where were you
everywhere.
born? That's where were you born?
I was born in Pembroke, Petawawa. Yeah.
Oh, get out. So
So
for anybody
my
listening,
dad was a classic military. My mom always wanted to stay on the East Coast because they're from Quebec. So it was
yeah,
always like Trenton. We moved to Shearwater, Greenwood, PEI. So I was mostly Maritimes and Ontario,
right.
Trenton. Yeah.
Yeah, so the eastern part of
Yeah.
Canada as opposed to the western part. So you never made it past Ontario
No,
border
my mom didn't
for
want to go
postings.
far.
Yeah, well, I don't blame her, to be quite honest. I avoided my any postings out west. I didn't want to go that far as
Yeah.
well. And so you said you were 29 when you joined,
Yeah.
and you had a young son,
No,
I
a daughter.
assume,
She was
a
5.
daughter, young
Yeah.
daughter, 5 years old. So pardon the expression, but what the heck was going through your mind to decide to do that at 29 years old?
Well, like most of us, I think at one point I was working at a bank, so I had a little job, I had a house, but I was just not making enough, and I wasn't feeling that it was giving me any passion, right? And then remember, I was
Right.
used to moving all the time. So my
Right.
house, I would make it into a house, and that like And then I would literally move all the rooms around in the house like every year. So my room became my daughter's room, and then my living room became the dining room. And just because I needed to move, I had the desire of moving again, and I didn't have it anymore. And then I wanted to give my daughter a better life. I wanted her to be in a good life and not miss out on anything and stuff. So, times were I was struggling as a working at a bank, right? Like, I mean, I went
Yeah,
to food banks and life was hard, so I didn't want to do that anymore. And I thought the
right.
military was going to change my life, right?
I'm surprised growing up as a military brat, so to speak, that you took so long to make that decision, to be quite
I know.
honest.
I know, but I didn't want to be the typical, I'm going to be like my dad, because all my friends
Yeah,
were in it and they've been in it for like 10 years. And then I was like,
yeah,
damn, why didn't I do
yeah,
this before? Yeah.
that's right, yeah, I hear you. And so what was basic training like? It must have been, um,
Well,
challenging for you.
back like 13 years ago, we had the 13 weeks of basic training because now they kind of shortened it now. But I did the 13 weeks of basic training. I was not in shape when I went in, like at all. Uh, I was
Well, who the
always
heck is?
the shortest on my platoon, so I was the shortest, and then I had a guy that was like 6'5", that's the tallest. So we were the markers, and everybody, I
Right,
had to try to follow him. He had to try to like backpedal to me. It was weird, but I mean,
yeah,
it was still life changing. Like, I had such a great time in basic training, even though I cried so much. It was
right,
very it was like big brother. Like, we all became a family. We all it
right,
no, I knew it was a game. I understood it.
right,
My dad would tell me it's just a game, put it in one ear, out the other. So,
right.
you know, it was a good experience. I mean, it wasn't
Oh,
horrible.
so the physical part was the most challenging. I take it from what you're saying. So the
Yeah.
mental part wasn't that big of a deal for you then? Because there is
Well,
a lot of mental.
going up uh the whatchamacallit,
The
the
obstacle course wall?
obstacle course, yes. Like, you remember the A part when you had
Yes.
the
Yeah.
full FFO on? I was like, "Oh, I can do this." Yeah. I got up to the third log and then I froze. And then was there and I was crying and I was like, "I can't come back down." I was scared shitless. I couldn't go anywhere. So I was just holding on to the log crying because I was like, "Somebody come help me. I can't do anything." Oh my God. Yeah, it was
Okay,
bad.
so I'm gonna interject here with my story from basic training. You haven't got to my side of this whole interview thing, but I have to laugh because I can so relate to what you're saying. So I went through Saint Jean and it was 10 weeks, I think I did back in 99. Um, I had I had this fear of heights. I since I was a kid. I went on that pirate ship on at the exhibition at the fair, that pirate ship, and
Yeah.
I almost lost my cookies on that. I was so scared. I can't do the Ferris wheel, I can't do any heights. So here we do, you have to do the rappel tower. So
Okay.
that's my first time. And I was all for it because I did the maritime crossing where you're in the harness and you have to hold on and you're going across the wire over water. That didn't bother me because I had a life jacket on and I knew if I hit the water, I can swim, I'm good, right? But holy crap, that tower. So it took me the first, I was like, at first, I was like, okay, let's go. I'm good. We did the 6 foot one. I got up there, the trial, the practice one, the 6 foot tower. And then I got all positioned. And my first step backwards, my foot slipped. I landed against the wall, flat against the wall, my back flat against the wall, and my feet wrapped up in the in
No.
the
In the
the,
cord.
the rope in the
Yeah.
rope. And I'm looking at the rappel master. I'm like, get me the F off this wall now. So I went down and we had a big warrant. Like, he was Van Du, like, to, RCR, the Van Du out of Quebec. Big, tall, 6'3", 250-pound guy. And I went 3 times in line to go up to the 32 foot, the top. I was bawling the whole time. 3 times it took me. And he finally came up to me because they had the smallest person that was gonna be my brake. So anybody that doesn't know, you have somebody at the bottom that brakes you in case you fall as you're coming down the rope, against the wall. And they gave me the smallest person in the platoon to be my brake. So I kept going to the front and then I would go to the back and I started crying again. And I'd go to the front and I'd go to the back. And I was trying to like work up the courage to get up there. And the warrant finally came over. And he says, "Would it make any difference if I was your brake?" And I was like, "Yes, warrant, it would." So that's all I needed. I got up there and I was sick in my stomach. The vertigo hit. It was like awful. And I was like, "Oh, okay, let's do it." I was like a champ going down. By the time I got down there, I was like, he's like, "What was the problem? You did just fine."
I know, right?
It was just the anticipation of it, right? And that's the
Um,
mental part of the training. Like those are the hurdles they teach you to get over. So I know your hurdle was that apex frame wall. I'm not even sure I had to do that.
Oh, I did the rappel tower, kind of like you. I remember being
Yeah.
there, and then there were like airborns that were showing us what to do, and
Yeah.
I'm already crying because I'm like, I don't even know how to do this too, and I'm crying, and the guy comes and looks at me, right, spots me crying because I'm like, oh my god,
Yeah.
I don't know how to do this. He's like, you're going first, and I'm like, no, and I cried again, and I went up, and he's like, and I got up there, and I'm shaking like a leaf, like I don't
Yeah.
know how to do this. He's like, I'm
Oh
gonna
yeah.
rope if you don't go down, and I was like, oh my god, I don't know, but I did it. And
Where
like at the end, when I started
yeah,
bouncing, they're like, just bounce off
yeah,
the wall, bounce off the ball. I'm like,
exactly.
I was like,
Woohoo!
I know it's so weird, so
I
weird.
don't know how I didn't soil myself at the top before I went down. Like I was shaking that bad. But that's, it's funny how a lot of us have that sort of story in common. So you went on and you finished your basic training, and then you went and you did what we call trades training. So you said your trade was what? Sorry.
I was an AC op, so an air control operator. So what
Okay,
happened?
so
Yeah. So I went.
overview of that.
So air control operator, basically they kind of amalgamated the trade. So we have air defense and we have air traffic side. So
Right.
so we can go work for the air defense sector or we can go for ATC. But after our basic training, what we do is we go to Cornwall, Ontario, to NAV Canada, and we do both. So it's a little training of both, and then after that, you kind of go either you go to North Bay or you go to an ATC side. And I went,
Okay. So
yeah, they kind of
I didn't
amalgamated it.
yeah, I didn't realize they had put those two trades together.
Yeah,
But they didn't in the reserves, right? They still have air defense reserves, right?
I don't know.
As separate. Okay, that's a different story.
Yeah,
Um,
don't know.
okay, so they put those two together, and then so you worked in the tower as air traffic control,
I actually
like
did both. So
okay,
after my course, I went to Baggetville. I worked in the tower at the beginning, and then they put me to COC, which is a Combat Operations Center, which I did
right,
almost like, and that's NORAD side. So I started with ATC, and then they switched me like 3 months later after getting qualified in the tower. They switched me to COC, and then I did that for numerous years, and so that was the air defense side. And
okay.
then
So
yeah,
just for clarification for our listeners, NORAD is the North American
air defense,
Air Defense. Okay, just so
and
our listeners
and we work
understand.
and we work with the United States and Canada. So
Okay,
yeah.
it's a joint effort. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. So what we do,
cool. And
so
so
basically air defense does the control of every airplane, everything flying, including missiles and everything coming out from other countries coming into Canada or the United States. We keep track of everything entering Canada and the
yeah.
United States. Yeah.
Any close calls while you were on duty?
No, No,
No?
no.
No
Anyways, I
issues,
couldn't
all
tell you. I'd
safe.
have to kill you.
Right, I was gonna say, if you're even allowed to tell us. Exactly. I hear
Yeah,
you. So you spent 13 years in the military, and then your release happened.
yeah.
And I don't know if you want to get into that story or not, but it's
I'll
up to
keep it for
you.
another day, but
Yeah,
basically the reason my career ended was because of the mandates. I did not want to participate in getting this vaccine. So unfortunately, I the military had to kick me out with the 5F release, and it's been
yeah,
about 3 months now that I've have officially
right,
been retired. Yeah.
right. Yeah, so you're not the only one in that boat. But like you said, we'll leave that story for, maybe another segment where we do a panel or we have people on that want to discuss that particular subject. But I find it really sad that that happened to you when there could have been other options that they presented within the military disciplinary structure,
Yeah.
such as a charge or administrative action. So,
Yeah.
that being said, so now you're out and you're doing what now?
I am preparing a podcast with Lou-Anne. That's what I'm doing. So basically, right now, I have no plans. I don't plan on going back to work anytime soon. Um, I'm just kind of living my life, trying to enjoy the moment, trying to get back to finding who I am, you know,
Right.
like, like
Yeah.
trying not to be in military for 13 years. That's like
Yeah.
that was part of my identity. So trying
Yes.
to be like, okay, who is Josee? What am I doing? I really enjoy being on TikTok. So,
Yes.
that takes a lot of my time too, because it gets me out
Yeah.
of my thinking too
Your
much.
headspace.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's understandable. I mean, it was quite sudden. It was not expected. You were expecting to do a full career, and so now you've had to switch gears very quickly. And I know for a lot of us, myself included, you do so much time that getting out, you're just sort of thrown to the wolves, you know and because you're institutionalized, and that's exactly what happens when you're living that lifestyle. It's an institution, and you absorb all of that, and that's who you are for that period of time. So yeah, I can understand how that would be difficult to adjust to, especially with the way it happened for you. Not much warning, no benefits, no nothing. So I feel bad that that did happen to you, but let's hope that by doing this, we can, bring some focus to your life, and we can carry on. And we'll get to hear a lot of great stories during this show. I'm sure of it.
A
I'm
hundred
sure of
percent.
it.
Now let's get to your story. Tell me about you.
So I was raised in Nova Scotia. I was not a military brat. I had nobody in my family ever joined the military. I was the very first one. I
Okay.
think my uncle in the States did a small stint in the Navy, but wasn't really enough to be a big deal in the family. So I was the first one to join.
And what
I
made
grew
you
up in
want
a
to join? How
well,
old
I
are
was
you?
well, so I was very similar story to you. I grew up. I worked retail for a long time, and like you, I was like a little bird in a tree. I liked moving around. Like I never was a military brat, but I like to move around. I like doing different things. I would get bored with my jobs. I was bopping from thing to thing to thing to try and figure out what it is I wanted to do. There was no way I was going back to school. I tried that. It failed miserably. I can't do school. I can't. I was lucky to make it through high school. So my ex-husband at the time suggested that I try and join. And I was like, are you nuts? Like, what do you mean? I'm too old. Because I was 30, 31 when I joined.
Holy, you're older
So
than me.
I know. I was 31 when I joined. I was like, oh no, they're not going to take me. I'm too old. But he's like, he kept bugging me and bugging me. And then the more I started thinking about it, and then um, the more I was thinking, well, maybe this is what's going to give me the purpose in my life that I've been looking for. Be a part of something bigger than myself in the stupid retail minimum wage jobs that are getting me nowhere. Maybe give me some skills that I can use later on down the road, if nothing else. But the big thing was, um, I've been living that lifestyle with my ex for quite some time, and so I was familiar with it. And again, he
But he
told me,
was
it's all just
military.
a game. My ex-husband was military. So, I lived that lifestyle as the spouse of a military, as a military wife, right? So I was familiar with everything that went on, and the culture, and that gave me a big head start, plus a lot of the administrative stuff I was familiar with. So I didn't go in there completely blind, and like your father was like, it's just a game. Well, that was the takeaway I got when I joined basic training. I went in and I already knew, you had to have separate toothbrush, separate this, separate that for your inspections. And
So
we were allowed
you get to copy it and right?
that's right. Yeah, so we had everything we needed for inspection that we never used, but we pretended to use,
I know.
right? Because you got to play the game. Like they
Yeah.
needed to see that the toothpaste had been used, so we'd squeeze a little bit out, and then you wet your toothbrush and made it look like it was used when it really wasn't. Because if it was used, then you'd get screamed at and push-ups for having your toothbrush dirty. So
Yeah.
but we were allowed a personal bag that we were locked up. So every morning we'd take all of our things that we normally use, our toothbrush and so on and so forth, and we would use that and then pack it away in the personal bag so they didn't see that because they weren't allowed to go through it. But anyway, basic training, like you, I found the hardest. Like I was a mother, I'd been working for years. My son was 2.5 when I joined.
Oh.
So I was a late bloomer all the way around, like having kids and finding my career. And I got there. So the mental part of it wasn't so much like screaming in my face. Yeah, go ahead. Like my mother screamed at me worse than you did growing up, right? Like they didn't scare me. And the one instructor, she had these great big googly eyes. Like she was scary on her own, let alone, just to look at her, it was too funny. The master seaman. I'll never forget her. Um, I think by the end of basic training, I owed something like 100 push-ups because I was like the worst for my buttons. Like they would check my buttons. I would always forget a button or something. And it took me weeks to figure out how to do my boots. It took me forever to figure out how to lace my boots up properly.
But were
So
you
luckily,
unisex? Were you with guys or just with girls?
no, we had a female platoon of 60 to start.
Wow, I
We
was
had
with
more
5.
Yeah,
Okay.
we had more women, like, we had a full female platoon,
Wow.
and then we had half the amount of guys on the other side of us in our platoon, and this was a big recruiting spree they had back then in '99 because they had shut everything down for years, so they opened it wide up for a whole bunch of people, so there was people that were in their 40s and 50s training with
So
us,
all
so
girl platoon, that I don't know if that makes it better or worse. I don't know.
yeah, it had its merits, and at one point we actually had to go over and help the guys because they kept failing us because of their inspection status. Like their inspections, their rooms were like total what. But so we ended up convincing the instructors that we had to go help them. So we went over and we did it. Like we brought them up to standard and we did everything for them. And then by the next morning, it was crap again, and they failed. Anyway, by the time we finished graduating, we had 30 on our platoon, 30 women and 19 guys. So half of the females had dropped out by then.
Wow.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, it was an interesting 10 weeks, but the physical part was by far the hardest for a lot of us. Not because we weren't shaped, just because of ill-fitting equipment, and yeah, we weren't in shape by the time we were done, but trying to keep up with a 6'3" 250-pound guy on a forced march. I mean, his leg span had to have been taller. His leg span was wider than I was tall.
Right.
So we were running to keep up with the guy. So we were working extra hard. So yeah, so I graduated, and actually I ended up getting injured on that little wall story I told you about when I fell backwards, and I had my leg pinned, so I actually pulled all my hip flexor muscles. But I managed somehow to get through the rest of the training. When they came to do the 13 kilometers at the end, the rucksack march that we had to do at the end, um, somebody noticed I was limping, and they said, "You're off."
Oh.
And oh, I cried. I was so upset. But it's probably just it's a good thing that it wasn't a test for us, so it wouldn't fail me. They took it
Right.
off as it wasn't a test, so probably just as well, because it's turned out when I left basic training. So you could see it when they videoed. I had a video of the parade at the end, and you could see when I went to step off from that left leg that I couldn't move it.
Ah.
It was quite obvious, but
At
I
least
was
you
not.
finished. At least you
Well,
finished it.
yeah, I was not going to be on that parade, so I did everything I could to make sure that uniform was on, and I was on that parade. One girl, she actually broke a bone, so and I saw her sitting off to the side, and I felt so bad. Like, that's just heartbreaking, right? Do
Yeah.
all that work and then end up on the bench,
Right.
not being able to do that graduation parade. So my sister ended up surprising me and bringing my son, and
Oh.
that's the most heart well, that was the most heartwarming bit about everything. Was I saw him in the stands, and I was everything I could do not to cry. And then at the end, when everything was finished, she brought him up to me, and like, I just grabbed onto him, and he put his little hands on my face. He was just learning to talk. He put his little hands on my face, and he goes, "Mommy marches." That's what he
Oh.
said to me in his little boy voice. So that's the epitome of the end of my training. So,
That's good.
but I went on to serve close to 22 years. I say 22 years. I rounded up. I served actually 21 years, 3 months,
You didn't
or
say
I
your
actually served
trade.
20. I went in as a resource management support clerk. So basically, that's looking after the administration and finance side. So we were considered a support trade. We weren't, infantry or any of those combat trades. So I went in to do that, and by the time I left, they had divided the trade into human resources and finance. So I chose the human resource side. So for the final years of my career, so I say 22 years, but I actually served 21 years, 9 months, and 3 days. I rounded up to 22. So the last 5 years, I think it was, I served as human resources on that side, just strictly administration. And we were responsible for pay, and a whole bunch of other different things, which will come out as the
Yeah.
show goes on. And excuse me. So that's
So did
that's
you?
the end
So
of
you
my.
stayed. Where did you get transferred to?
I Look, I've got so many stories, it would take me more than a half hour to get through them all. So let's just say, in a nutshell, I did most of my career in Ontario. I started in Petawawa. I did 6 years in Petahaha, we called it. I did 6 years there. Then I moved to Borden. Then I went to Trenton. I did a short stint as a flight attendant outside of my trade. Um, so that's another whole part of my career that needs to be explored at some point. And then I went to Kingston, and from Kingston I moved to Nova Scotia.
So you really did
And
stay in Ontario.
yeah, we did.
Yeah.
So but you know what? My last 10 years was actually 9 years. The last 9 years was in Nova Scotia, so almost half, half and
Okay.
half, right? So I ended up back home where I grew up in Halifax, and that's where I was ultimately released for medical reasons at the tender age of whatever, 21 years, 9 months, and 3 days later.
Hey,
And,
that's
that,
still
and
good.
that's my
You
career.
still did 20. Thank
Yeah.
you
So, I
for your
mean,
service.
I'm not even 2 years out yet. So this again is like you. I've been trying to find something that I thought would be meaningful and something to do with my time. I'm not a very social person, to be quite honest, but I do like hearing people's stories. And
And that's
without a
how we met.
legion,
And I think we have to
right?
tell them how we met. We met because of Veterans for Freedom, I think, right?
Yes. Yes. So it's a nonprofit organization that you and I met through. Um, and, a lot of us have gone there because there's no legion anymore, so to speak. I mean, the legion has not really been there for veterans for a long time. And with everything that's gone on in this last 2 years, it was difficult for people to connect. So, us meeting through that organization was kind of a godsend, really, and has led us to doing this podcast and giving us something to. I mean, we'll have no end of the stories, if people want to come on. So, that's what I want to plug now is anybody who wants to come on and tell us their story, um, contact us at what is it? Veterans Table Talk at gmail.com.
Yeah, exactly.
Send us an email. Give us an overview of your career, your life before the military. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate. Just a quick overview, and we'll reach out to you. Leave us a way to contact you. We'll reach out to you, and we'll have a chat, and hopefully we can get you on air, and you can tell your story. Because that's what we used to do in the Legion. We used to sit and tell stories. That's what the Legion was made for. So if we can't do that in the Legion, let's do it here. Why not?
I totally agree. I think everybody has a story, everybody has a perspective, and it should be known to everybody. And why not share our stories? Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think on that note, we'll end today's show. So for our next episode, we have Jill coming on to join us. She's very active in the veteran community. She's going to let us know about her upbringing, her life in the military, and what she's doing now. And we're looking forward to having a really good chat with her on our next episode. And just so everybody is aware, we do pre-record our episodes so that we have time to finesse them as we go and make sure that they're good quality for you folks out there listening to us. And until next time, we'd like to thank you for joining us today on Veterans Table Talk. And we're going to head back outside the wire now. Cheers.
Take care.